The neighborhood had always been picture perfect. Trimmed hedges lined driveways that curved gently into two-story homes with matching mailboxes. American flags fluttered from porches, and children's bicycles lay abandoned on emerald lawns during summer evenings. It was the kind of place where people moved to feel safe. The kind of place my sister Emma chose when her FBI field office transferred her to our district. She arrived in early June with my nephew Ethan, a quiet 16-year-old with a sharp mind and respectful demeanor. I helped them unpack boxes in the colonial-style house just 3 streets from mine. For the first time in years, we would be close enough for weekly dinners and impromptu visits. Ethan seemed excited about the move, especially about earning money during his summer break. The neighbors already asked if I could mow their lawn next week, he told me, arranging books on his new shelf. I might be able to save enough for that laptop before school starts. Emma smiled, but I could see the caution in her eyes. Being an FBI agent had made her naturally protective, especially as a single mother. Just make sure you introduce yourself properly to everyone, she said. Remember that we are the newcomers here. That was Emma, always careful, always following protocol. What we did not realize was that protocols in this neighborhood had been quietly corrupted long before we arrived. I first noticed him 3 days after they moved in, an older man, perhaps in his early 60s, with thinning gray hair and a permanent frown etched into leathery skin. He wore a neon yellow vest over a polo shirt, carried a clipboard, and moved through the neighborhood with unearned authority. At first, I thought nothing of it. Homeowners associations often had representatives who checked for violations. But something felt off about this man. He did not just observe, he confronted. He did not just note, he commanded. Folks around here call him the volunteer enforcer. My neighbor James whispered one evening as we watched the man photograph a child's bicycle left on a front lawn. Henry Watkins, retired from something or other. Not officially on the HOA board, but acts like he runs it. Nobody wants to challenge him. I watched Ethan leave for his first lawn mowing job early the next morning, push mower in tow. By noon, he had earned his first $30 and lined up 3 more houses for the week. By the following week, he was walking dogs for the Thompsons and the elderly Wilsons at the end of the cul-de-sac. The neighborhood kids started greeting him. He was fitting in. Then it happened. I was watering my front garden when I saw Henry approach Ethan, who was returning from walking the Thompsons' golden retriever. Henry's finger jabbed the air inches from my nephew's face. His voice carried across the quiet street. We do not allow loitering or solicitation in this community. Young man, what exactly are you doing wandering around these houses? Do your parents know where you are? Ethan stood frozen, the dog leash still in his hand. I am walking the Thompsons' dog, sir. They hired me for the summer. Henry's eyes narrowed. Do you have proper documentation? A service permit? These are private properties protected by our covenant. That evening, Ethan recounted the incident at dinner, his fork pushing food around more than eating it. Emma maintained her composure, but I recognized the look in her eyes, the same one she got when reviewing difficult cases. Just stay respectful, she told Ethan. Do not engage beyond answering direct questions. If he becomes aggressive, walk away and call me immediately. But Henry did not stop. Over the next week, he appeared wherever Ethan worked, standing across streets, taking notes, questioning neighbors who hired him. It went beyond vigilance. It felt like targeting. I do not like this, I told Emma one evening after Ethan had gone to bed. Something does not feel right about that man. Emma nodded slowly. Neither do I. Start documenting everything. Times, dates, what he says, how long he watches. Take photos if you can do it discreetly. That was when I realized how serious she considered the situation. An FBI agent does not document without cause. Do you think he is dangerous? I asked. Emma chose her words carefully. I think he is someone who has created power where he has none, and that kind of person can become unpredictable when challenged. As July bloomed hot and humid, tension grew with it. The summer that had started with such promise was transforming into something else entirely, something that felt increasingly like a powder keg, waiting for a spark. And Henry Watkins, with his fake authority and narrowed eyes, seemed determined to provide that spark. The first violation notice appeared on a Tuesday morning. A bright orange paper slipped under Emma's windshield wiper, official-looking but oddly amateur. The letter read, Neighborhood Safety Commission, an organization none of us had ever heard of. Violation, unauthorized youth activity. Resident minor observed soliciting services without proper registration. Fine, $75. Payable to neighborhood fund. Emma studied the paper, turning it over in her hands. There was no official stamp, no HOA logo, just a scrolled signature, Officer Henry Watkins, Community Safety. This is not a real citation, she said, her trained eye immediately catching inconsistencies. Look at the font changes, the misaligned margins. This was made on a home computer. By Thursday, 3 more houses had received similar notices. All homes where Ethan had performed yard work or dog walking. The violations ranged from improper lawn care equipment storage to noise ordinance violations during daylight hours, each carrying fabricated fines between $50 and $100. I called Sofia Alvarez, the actual HOA president. While Emma was at work, her response confirmed our suspicions. We do not have anyone named Henry on our board or committees, she said, sounding troubled. And we certainly do not issue fines that way. Our notices come on letterhead with the HOA logo and require board approval. Then who is he? I asked. A long pause followed. He attends meetings sometimes, sits in the back, makes suggestions, but he has no official capacity. Then why does everyone seem afraid to confront him? Another pause. I would just be careful, she said finally. He has lived here longer than most of us. By mid-July, Henry had escalated. He now carried a digital camera, photographing not just properties but people, specifically children playing in front yards or riding bikes, documenting covenant violations, he claimed when questioned by nervous parents. I watched from my kitchen window as he stationed himself in a lawn chair at the corner of our street, clipboard in hand, making notes whenever someone entered or exited a home. When Ethan left to mow the Carter's lawn, Henry followed at a distance, pretending to inspect mailboxes. My nephew began asking to be driven to jobs rather than walking. He makes me nervous, Ethan admitted. He asked me yesterday if my mother knows I have been entering people's homes. Emma's patience ended that afternoon. I watched from my porch as she approached Henry directly. She stood tall in her casual weekend clothes, but I recognized her stance, feet planted firmly, hands visible, voice controlled. It was how she approached uncertain situations in her professional capacity. Mr. Watkins, she said clearly, I understand you have been following my son and issuing unauthorized notices. Henry straightened up, puffing out his chest. I am acting authority until new elections. This neighborhood has standards. What elections? Which official body do you represent? He adjusted his glasses nervously. The Community Safety Commission. We oversee HOA enforcement. I have spoken with the HOA president, Emma replied. No such commission exists. His face reddened. You newcomers do not understand how things work here. Your boy is unsupervised, entering properties, causing disturbances. My son is employed by neighbors who have specifically requested his services. He has broken no rules, laws, or covenants. Henry's voice rose. If you cannot control your delinquent son, perhaps I should report him to actual authorities. I have documented numerous violations. That word delinquent hung in the air between them. I saw something flash in Emma's eyes, quickly controlled. Mr. Watkins, she said, her voice dangerously calm. I am only going to say this once. Stay away from my son. Do not photograph him. Do not follow him. Do not issue fake notices. If you continue, I will take appropriate action. Henry smirked. Is that a threat? No, Emma replied. It is a promise of consequences. She turned and walked away, leaving Henry standing with his mouth partially open. Later that evening, I noticed him driving slowly past their house 3 separate times. He is escalating. I told Emma as we sat on her back porch. The confrontation made it worse. She nodded. People like that always escalate when challenged. But now we have witnesses who heard him admit the notices are unauthorized. The next move is his. We did not have to wait long to see what that move would be. The community park sat at the center of our neighborhood, 5 acres of green space with a playground, basketball courts, and shaded benches where elderly residents played chess on concrete tables. It was public property, technically outside HOA jurisdiction, though Henry had posted unauthorized rules on a laminated sheet by the entrance. On the first Saturday in August, Ethan walked to the park with his headphones and a book. Emma was at a bureau meeting, and I was installing shelves in my garage when my phone rang. Uncle Mark. Ethan's voice trembled. He is here. Henry. He says I am trespassing. What? Where exactly are you? The park, by the basketball courts. He has these handcuffs. And the call cut off. I grabbed my keys and was in my car within seconds, simultaneously trying to reach Emma. When I pulled into the park lot 8 minutes later, a small crowd had gathered by the courts. What I saw froze my blood. Ethan sat on a bench, his wrists bound in front of him with rusted handcuffs. Henry stood over him, waving his arms and lecturing the gathered onlookers. My nephew's face was flushed with humiliation. I pushed through the crowd. What the hell do you think you are doing? Take those off him immediately. Henry turned, his expression smug. This young man is being detained for trespassing, vandalism, and disturbing the peace. I am performing a citizen's arrest until proper authorities arrive. He is 16 years old, I shouted. What vandalism? He was reading a book. I observed him defacing park property. Henry announced loudly. The bench he was sitting on, inappropriately. A woman in the crowd spoke up. That is not true. I have been here the whole time. The boy was just sitting quietly. Henry ignored her. As neighborhood safety officer, I have the authority to detain suspects until police arrive. There is no such position, I said through gritted teeth. You have no right to handcuff anyone, especially a minor. I have made a citizen's arrest based on observed criminal activity, Henry insisted, his voice rising. Interfere, and you will be detained as well. The crowd had grown larger. Some people filmed with their phones. Others whispered among themselves. I saw the fear and confusion on Ethan's face, and rage burned through me. A car door slammed behind us. The crowd parted as Emma walked forward, her pace measured, her expression unreadable. She had come directly from her meeting, still wearing her professional attire. She took in the scene with a single sweep of her eyes. Release my son, she said, her voice quiet but carrying across the suddenly silent crowd. Henry straightened his vest. Are you the mother? Your son has been detained for multiple violations of community standards and park regulations. I am Officer Watkins, and I am performing a legal citizen's arrest. Emma stepped closer. Under what authority are you detaining a minor? Neighborhood Safety Commission. I have full jurisdiction in this area. Show me your credentials, Emma demanded. Henry produced a laminated card from his pocket, flashing it quickly before returning it. Official Neighborhood Safety Officer. Now step back while I complete this process. Emma did not move. A citizen's arrest requires witnessing an actual crime. What felony did you witness? Henry faltered slightly. Vandalism, trespassing, disorderly conduct. All misdemeanors, not felonies. Emma noted calmly, and all apparently fabricated according to witnesses. I do not need to justify myself to you, Henry snapped, color rising in his cheeks. This is my neighborhood. I protect it from delinquents like him. That word again, delinquent. Emma's expression did not change, but something shifted in her stance. I will ask you once more, she said. Under what legal authority are you restraining my son? When Henry merely glared, Emma reached into her handbag. The movement was deliberate, controlled. She withdrew a leather wallet and opened it, revealing the gold shield and identification card that identified her as a special agent of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Federal Agent Emma Harper, she said, her voice carrying clearly to everyone watching. You are currently committing false imprisonment of a minor and impersonating a law enforcement officer. Release my son, immediately. The color drained from Henry's face. His mouth opened, then closed. The crowd murmured. It is just a community safety measure, he stammered, just keeping an eye on suspicious activity. I did not mean. The keys, Emma demanded, extending her hand. Henry fumbled in his pocket, produced a small key, and handed it over with shaking fingers. As Emma unlocked her son's wrists, the red marks of the too tight handcuffs became visible to everyone watching. I think we had a misunderstanding, Henry said, his voice suddenly placating. Just a concerned citizen doing his duty. No need to escalate this situation. Emma helped Ethan to his feet, checking his wrists carefully before turning back to Henry. The look in her eyes made him take a step backward. This situation, she said precisely, was escalated the moment you put handcuffs on my son. The crowd dispersed slowly. Murmuring and casting glances back at the scene, Henry remained. His previously imposing figure now diminished. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the shade. "Please," he said, his voice lower now that most witnesses had departed. "This was all a misunderstanding. I was just trying to maintain neighborhood standards." Emma took photos of Ethan's wrists where the handcuffs had left red marks. She documented the handcuffs themselves, lying now on the bench. Her movements were methodical, professional. "You detained and handcuffed a minor," she stated. "You falsely claimed law enforcement authority. You have been issuing fraudulent citations throughout the neighborhood. I never claimed to be police." Henry protested weakly. "Just neighborhood safety. It is volunteer work. Presenting yourself as any form of law enforcement when you are not is a criminal offense." Emma replied. "Detaining someone against their will is false imprisonment." Henry's demeanor changed entirely. The bluster vanished. "Look, I've lived here 20 years. I keep this place safe. These kids today have no respect for property or rules. I was just trying to maintain standards by handcuffing teenagers in public parks," I asked. "It will not happen again," Henry promised. "There is no need to involve real authorities. I am just a concerned resident." Emma finished her documentation and looked directly at him. "My son will decide whether to press charges. Until then, stay away from him and our property." In the days that followed, the neighborhood transformed. What had been whispers became open conversations. Emma contacted her colleagues at the local field office, who connected her with detectives in the county sheriff's department. An official report was filed. The HOA called an emergency meeting, where they formally announced that Henry Watkins had never been affiliated with their organization in any official capacity. They had never authorized him to issue notices, collect fines, or enforce covenants. "We should have spoken up sooner," Sofia Alvarez admitted to the packed community center. "We knew he was overstepping, but no one wanted to confront him." Other families came forward. The Wilsons' daughter had been photographed playing in their own front yard. The Garcia family had paid a fraudulent $150 fine for excessive holiday decorations the previous December. The elderly Mr. Coleman had been told his grandson could not visit for more than 3 days without visitor registration. I created a private online group where neighbors could share their experiences. The stories poured in. 3 years of intimidation and fraudulent authority. Henry had shown different badges to different people. He had claimed to be a former police officer, a security consultant, and a deputized HOA enforcer, none of which were true. Emma worked methodically, creating a detailed report documenting every incident. Her FBI training made her thorough, precise, and unrelenting. She built a timeline of escalation that revealed a pattern of increasingly controlling behavior. He targeted the vulnerable, she explained one evening as we reviewed the neighborhood testimonies. Elderly residents who lived alone, new families who did not know the rules, single parents, people less likely to challenge him. Then Henry disappeared. His gray sedan was gone from his driveway. His porch light remained off for 3 consecutive nights. "He is on vacation," the HOA president informed us when Emma inquired. "He called to say he would be gone for a week. Convenient timing," I remarked. "He knows we are building a case," Emma said. "He is hoping this will blow over." But the momentum had shifted. Signs appeared in front yards: real community, real safety, real respect. The neighborhood WhatsApp group buzzed with conversations about actual covenant guidelines versus Henry's invented rules. People who had never spoken now greeted each other in driveways. "I never thought it would get this far," Ethan said quietly one evening. "I was just trying to earn some summer money." Emma put her arm around him. "This was never about you. It was about him needing control." But he picked the wrong community to manipulate. When Henry's car reappeared in his driveway a week later, he returned to a neighborhood that had fundamentally changed. The power he had cultivated through fear and misinformation had evaporated in his absence, and we were ready for what came next. During Henry's absence, Emma's investigation deepened. Her FBI credentials gave her access to databases and records that revealed a disturbing pattern. Henry Watkins was not just a local nuisance, he was a serial imposter. "Look at this," she said one evening, showing me her laptop screen. An online forum for an adjacent county contained posts from 3 years earlier, describing a self-appointed neighborhood watchman who issued fake citations and harassed residents. The description matched Henry perfectly. Further research uncovered similar complaints from a community 60 miles south, dating back 7 years, same tactics, same intimidation, same retreat when officially challenged. The most damning evidence came from an online retailer's records. Henry had purchased multiple security badges over the past decade, among them Neighborhood Safety Officer, Community Protection Agent, and Residential Security Director, all official-sounding titles for non-existent positions. I compiled the evidence into a clear visual presentation, side-by-side, comparisons of real law enforcement badges versus Henry's purchased replicas, screenshots of complaints from other communities, photographs of the unauthorized notices he had distributed. The community needs to see this, I told Emma. All of it. We printed flyers with the key evidence and distributed them throughout the neighborhood. The response was immediate and powerful. Residents who had remained neutral now expressed outrage. Those who had feared, speaking out now, shared their stories openly. The HOA called an emergency community meeting at the local elementary school cafeteria. Every seat was filled. People stood along the walls. Sofia Alvarez, the HOA president, opened the session with a formal apology. "We failed you as a board," she admitted. "We knew there were issues but did not take decisive action. That changes tonight." Emma had been invited to present her findings. As she stood at the podium, the room fell silent. She presented methodically, her professional training evident in every precisely chosen word and carefully organized slide. "This is not about neighborhood rules," she concluded. "This is about a pattern of intimidation, impersonation, and abuse of perceived authority that has victimized multiple communities over many years." Halfway through her presentation, the cafeteria doors swung open. Henry Watkins walked in, still wearing his yellow vest. A collective intake of breath swept through the room. He moved toward an empty seat in the back, his expression a mixture of defiance and unease. "Mr. Watkins," Sophia acknowledged stiffly, "we were just reviewing the evidence regarding your activities in our community." Henry stood, adjusting his vest. "I have served this neighborhood for years while the rest of you sat comfortably in your homes. Someone needed to maintain standards by impersonating authorities, by handcuffing minors." A voice called out from the crowd. "I never claimed to be police," Henry insisted. Emma calmly clicked to the next slide, a photograph of Henry's fake badge next to an authentic law enforcement badge. This replica was designed specifically to imitate official law enforcement identification, she noted. The star design, the metallic finish, the official sounding title, all calculated to imply legal authority you do not possess. Voices rose from every corner of the room. Parents described their children's fear. Elderly residents admitted paying fraudulent fines rather than facing confrontation. The Garcia family showed receipts for the $150 violation they had paid in cash directly to Henry. Henry's face reddened. "This is a witch hunt. I protected this community when no one else would." "From what, Mr. Watkins?" Emma asked calmly. "From teenagers mowing lawns, from children riding bicycles, from families displaying holiday decorations." "You do not understand," Henry sputtered. "Standards must be maintained. Property values have not been affected by any of the things you claim to prevent." Sophia interrupted. "Our property values are determined by market conditions, school districts, and actual covenant compliance, not by children playing in parks." I noticed 2 uniformed sheriff's deputies enter quietly through a side door. They stood, observing, making no move to approach. Emma concluded her presentation by distributing copies of all evidence to the HOA board. Community members and the deputies. "The sheriff's department has opened an investigation into Mr. Watkins' activities," she announced. "If you have experienced harassment, intimidation, or paid fraudulent fines, they are taking statements tonight." Henry's face drained of color as he watched one of the deputies approach him. The meeting continued around them as the officer spoke quietly to Henry, who nodded repeatedly, his shoulders slumping further with each passing moment. The community had found its voice. The man who had appointed himself its protector was now being escorted from the building, no longer able to hide behind a false badge and fabricated authority. The county courthouse stood imposing against the autumn sky, its red brick and white columns a symbol of actual authority, not the fabricated kind Henry had wielded. 3 months had passed since the confrontation in the park. Summer had faded into fall, and with it came the day of reckoning. Ethan adjusted his tie nervously as we climbed the courthouse steps. Emma walked beside him, poised in her professional suit, her hand occasionally touching his shoulder, reassuringly. "Just tell the truth," she reminded him. "Answer exactly what is asked. Nothing more, nothing less." The courtroom was surprisingly full. Neighbors filled the gallery. The Garcia family sat in the front row. Elderly Mr. Coleman had come with his daughter, Sofia Alvarez, and the entire HOA board occupied a full bench. It seemed the entire community had come to witness justice. Henry sat at the defendant's table beside his attorney, diminished in his navy suit, no neon vest in sight. He did not turn when we entered, but his shoulders tensed visibly. The charges had been reduced through plea negotiations. Henry had agreed to plead guilty to impersonating an officer and unlawful detention in exchange for probation instead of jail time. Today was the sentencing hearing, where the judge would formalize the agreement and hear impact statements. When Ethan was called to speak, a hush fell over the courtroom. He walked to the stand with composure that made my chest swell with pride. His voice wavered only slightly as he described the humiliation of being handcuffed in front of neighbors, the fear he felt being detained by an adult he had been taught to respect community authorities. "I was afraid to leave the house afterward," he admitted. "I stopped working in the neighborhood. I felt like I had done something wrong just by existing in public spaces." Other neighbors testified about years of intimidation. The pattern became clear with each account, Henry targeting those least likely to challenge him: newcomers, the elderly, single parents, teenagers. When the judge finally addressed Henry directly, her voice carried the weight of genuine authority. "Mr. Watkins," she began, "this court cannot help but note the irony of your situation. You appointed yourself enforcer of rules and standards that did not exist, using authority you did not possess. You collected fines you were not entitled to. You intimidated those who could not or would not challenge you." Henry stared at his hands, nodding almost imperceptibly. "The damage you have done extends beyond the specific incidents before this court," the judge continued. "You eroded community trust. You taught young people to fear rather than respect authority. You made elderly residents prisoners in their own homes." The sentence came down firmly: 2 years probation, mandatory psychological counseling, community service at the local animal shelter specifically chosen because it involved no authority over people, and a prohibition from serving on any HOA.community board or neighborhood organization for life. Furthermore, the judge concluded, "You are required to make full restitution for all fraudulent fines collected, with documentation to be submitted to this court within 30 days. As we exited the courthouse, neighbors stopped to thank Emma and express support for Ethan. The Garcia family hugged him. Mr. Coleman shook his hand formally. Sofia Alvarez invited us all to the upcoming HOA meeting, where they would be unveiling new transparency measures. "We are implementing photo ID badges for all actual HOA representatives," she explained, "and creating a public directory so residents can verify who has actual authority." On the drive home, Ethan was quiet, looking out the window at the neighborhood passing by. Finally, he spoke. "Do you think he will really change?" Emma considered the question carefully. "People like Henry rarely change fundamentally, but his power came from our silence and our fear. Those are gone now. I watched the houses of our neighborhood pass by, the same trimmed hedges, the same curved driveways, the same matching mailboxes, but something had shifted. People waved to each other from yards, children played freely on lawns, an elderly couple walked their dog without nervously checking over their shoulders. The neighborhood looked the same, but it was transformed, not by rules or enforcement, but by community finding its voice. The community pavilion glowed with string lights under the October sky. Tables lined the perimeter, laden with potluck dishes from every household. Children darted between adults, their laughter carrying across the park that had once been the site of such tension. Music played from speakers someone had set up near the basketball courts. The sign at the entrance read simply, "Oak Ridge Community Celebration." 3 weeks had passed since the courthouse sentencing. Our neighborhood had collectively exhaled, and then, almost spontaneously, organized this gathering not just a party, but a reclaiming of shared spaces. Ethan stood near the grills, helping flip burgers alongside James and other neighbors. He smiled easily now. The tension that had lived in his shoulders throughout summer finally dissolved. Occasionally, someone would pat his back or ruffle his hair, small gestures of affection from a community that had rallied around him. Mayor Thompson arrived around 7, making his way through the crowd with handshakes and greetings. He had requested to attend after learning about the case through local coverage. With him was Officer Martinez from the Community Policing Division. Under the pavilion, Sophia called for everyone's attention. The crowd gathered, paper plates and plastic cups in hand, conversations quieting as she spoke. "This summer was difficult for our community," she began. "We discovered that what we thought was security was actually fear. What we accepted as authority was intimidation. But through it all, we found our collective voice." She introduced Mayor Thompson, who stepped forward with a folder. "Communities are built on trust and respect," he said. "Today, I want to recognize someone who reminded us what real courage looks like." He turned to Ethan. "Young man, would you join me?" Ethan looked surprised as Emma nudged him forward. The mayor presented him with an official certificate of civic courage, the city seal embossed in gold at the bottom. "When faced with intimidation, you maintained your dignity," the mayor read. "Your stand helped reveal a system of fear that had affected many. Oak Ridge is stronger because of your courage." The community applauded as Ethan accepted the certificate, his smile shy but genuine. Officer Martinez spoke next, outlining the new community policing initiatives being implemented. "Real safety comes from trust between residents and legitimate authorities," she explained. "We are establishing monthly meetings where concerns can be addressed openly." Emma received her own recognition, a letter of commendation from her bureau supervisor, acknowledging her professional handling of a personal situation. She could have used her authority immediately, the letter stated, but instead built a community case that allowed proper local channels to function. As the evening progressed, neighbors shared stories I had never heard. Miss S. Abernathy, who rarely left her house, admitted she had been paying Henry $20 monthly for security monitoring for 3 years. The Browns confessed they had repainted their door 3 times because of Henry's harassment about non-compliant colors. Despite the HOA having no such restrictions, the revelations continued into the night, years of manipulation exposed like shadows disappearing under bright light. What struck me most was not the individual stories, but how sharing them seemed to heal something in each person. Near the end of the evening, I found myself standing at the edge of the park, looking out over the community that had transformed in mere months. Sophia joined me, following my gaze over the gathering. We posted the official HOA member photos and contact information at the community center, she said. Complete transparency. No more confusion about who was actual authority. I nodded. It was never really about Henry, was it? No, she agreed. It was about silence, about looking the other way, about assuming someone else would speak up. As the party wound down, families gathered their empty dishes and folding chairs. Children collected their toys. The community that had arrived as individuals departed in groups, walking together down streets that felt safer, not because of enforcement, but because of connection. Ethan walked between Emma and me, his certificate tucked carefully under his arm. "Do you think Henry is watching from his house?" he asked suddenly. I glanced toward the darkened windows of Henry's colonial at the edge of the neighborhood. "Maybe," I said. "But it does not matter anymore because he has no power." "Why not?" Ethan asked. Emma shook her head. "Because we remember what real community looks like, and we will never be silent again."